Joining us in the studio, significantly raising the handsome factor in this room, wouldn't you say, Christy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that handsome man over there is comedian Todd McComas. He's also a very distinguished former police officer and a badass. And that's why Mr. McComas is also heading up a podcast, one of these crime podcasts. What's it called?
The Investigators.
The Investigators, and you are investigating various crimes.
Different crime every week, and I get to bring my comedian persona into it a little bit, as appropriate, of course. You know, you got to be sensitive in certain areas. Pretty serious subject matter for the most part, but we pick our spots and combine a little humor just to give you a little vacation, you know, among all the doom and gloom.
All right. Yeah. Okay. And I don't know if you have been listening, but in the last few minutes, we've had some interesting news stories. The most recent one, I'm just reading this, looking at this picture. This lady is a grandma, 9 grandkids, and she lives in Oregon, goes by the name Ruby Lynn, and she, according to this, she's written the book, Granny Panties, How I Made a Fortune Selling My Worn Undies. And I bring it up again because in the picture, she's not wearing what are traditionally known as
granny panties. No, she's wearing lingerie in most of the photos that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Selling them for $80 a pair.
Do you think people get disappointed because they're Googling that with a reason? Like that's their fetish?
Yeah, granny panties.
Well, these aren't granny panties. I don't want to see lingerie.
I bet she would be happy to take requests, though. Like what color,
I see what you're
design,
saying.
what
Sure.
style.
Can you imagine one of her grandkids? Hey, I got my card from Grandma. I got a pair of used panties. Shut up. They're worth $80.
Yeah.
That's right. You want a birthday gift or not? Keep your mouth shut. Yeah.
Now, Todd, what have you been up to? I know you're now a married man, I understand.
Yeah, I got married again. You know, old habits die hard. It's number 3 for me.
All right.
Catching up to the room. Yeah.
All right.
Christy, you want to take this?
I'm on number 4. You got some catching up to do.
Christy's way ahead.
Well, I got time, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're a bit younger. True.
I got some time. No, this is it for me, man. I have finally accepted, like, I'm old. You know, like it happens. All of us, one day you just wake up and you accept it. There's things that you know you can't do anymore. Like I cannot fight. There's no way I can fight. I can't make sudden movements without farting. It's embarrassing. I'm going to pull something. I'm going to make an idiot out of myself. I can't run. God forbid there's ever a zombie apocalypse. I'm not ready. I'm past that age. I can't run away. I can't do anything that I used to do, Chrissy, except cornhole. I'm amazing at cornhole.
You mean the game with the beanbags?
Yes.
Not prison sex.
You
Thank
knew
you
that was
for
coming.
clarifying, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. I'm glad you're here.
Well, I know all of your years as a cop. I'm sure you know.
I think I'm of the age where I'm past that as well.
Nice to know.
You just got to lie there, I guess. That's what
Again, hard to do without farting.
the old BFs.
Sometimes you gotta fight. Right?
Oh, my gosh.
Sure.
So Todd, I know you didn't come here just to be
Hey, you
embarrassed.
want to fight or do this? It's up to you.
So your podcast.
We're doing it either way.
I'll be behind the counter.
Todd, your podcast, The Investigators.
Yes, sir.
And can you give us a little bit of a background on one of them? Now, how many are out there?
I have 3 episodes out right now.
Well, they investigate stuff. So what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have this amazing co-host is what happened. You guys noticed I haven't been here in a long time. I was just laying low.
Right.
I was just wrapped up in a bunch of hired gun investigations to help other people with their stuff. And in the course of all that, I met this amazing producer and investigative journalist named Jessica Knoll. She works for Dateline, of all places, on the side. And then she and I worked on a project together for about a year. And then after that, we were freed up to do our own weekly podcast. And luckily, she stooped to my level. It really helps the whole resume of the podcast because she has real credentials. So
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good fit.
But you were a cop for a long time.
I do know how to investigate for sure. She brings this other level of like, you know, when you're a cop, it's easy to get information. You just go there and say, hey, can I have those records? And they're like, yeah. And then when you're not a cop anymore, it turns out pretty hard.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to get police records.
Have you tried this? I used to be a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have tried that.
Okay.
And sometimes it works. Most time it does not.
You know what doesn't work is me going up and saying, I've watched a lot of cop shows. Never gets me anything.
And you're famous for when you get pulled over saying, I pay your salary.
Well, I know how much police officers love hearing that.
That always works. That always works.
Anytime you can get the word donuts in a sentence. Now, have you been pulled over since you retired? And do you have some kind of ID that shows you're an ex-cop, or do you say something?
I don't. That's the worst. Like, I do have a badge because I just didn't turn it in.
Right.
So
All right.
I left 4 years early from full, like, where they give you a retirement ID. I get a pension and all that stuff. It's really what I care
So you don't
about.
have a debt ret card or
I
whatever.
do not have anything that says retired Indiana State Police detective or anything like that. So it gets a little like you just have to rely on goodwill at that point. And it has not worked so far. Like, turns out troopers in Wisconsin don't care. They don't care. There's people. I thought it would be a big advantage for me. Like, okay, now I'm investigating as a civilian, but I have all these connections, and they just don't care. I got a big project right now, and it gets to Hollywood, and I thought, man, I'm gonna have something cool to offer Hollywood. They're gonna be impressed by me, former detective and comedian. How many times have they seen that? Not impressed. Not impressed at all. Yeah, just a lot of staring at me.
Oh.
So,
Are you a licensed private investigator?
I am not. I'm just a good investigator that does it unlicensed.
Okay, good. Yeah.
What does it take to get
hang
licensed?
on a minute. I didn't know. You have to be licensed to be a private detective?
Well, yeah.
You can be.
Right. I don't know that it's
certain
necessary,
things.
but it's...
It's not necessary for what I do.
Okay.
But, like, let's say you're going to hire me and I'm going to take money from you and make
Surveillance
a business
or
out of
something?
it,
Yeah.
then I need to be licensed in certain states.
Gotcha.
But-
What does that entail? Do you have to take a test? Do you,
I think it's just,
or just give them some money?
I think it's pretty much like Magnum PI. You just put on a flowered shirt and say, I'm a PI.
Gotcha.
And as long as you pay the money, you get the license.
Okay.
That's what I think.
10 questions, true, false, and
Yeah.
you're out of there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Have you ever been approached about being hired as a private detective?
No, I get approached all the time about people wanting me to sell cop stuff.
What do you mean?
Like software and gadgets and new wave like cool stuff with facial recognition and stuff. I guess because I'm on LinkedIn and I know a lot of cops and they see I'm a comedian, they're like, oh, he will be a good salesperson. I am not. I am the worst salesperson of all time. I'm like the worst person at, like, in reverse roles. I will pay you full price for that car every time. I don't like to haggle. I don't want you to
I'm
have
that
to spend
girl,
any
too.
money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm the worst at it. I'm the worst at self-promotion.
And they see us coming, don't they, Todd?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you're too modest to say it. I know about your background as a police officer, and you were indeed a badass. I'm surprised someone hasn't said, hey, look, can you do some investigating for me about where they'd pay you to do, surveillance or
Can
whatever.
you take that truck out where you can triangulate cell phones? Do you get to do that anymore?
Oh, no, but
Oh,
Chick
man.
knows that used to be my gig. That was a good job.
That was a great job.
You know how easy
that
it is
work?
to find people by your phones? Like, and here's the thing, like, before long, there's going to be no unsolved crime, right?
Right.
There's going to be no unsolved murders, nothing. There's cameras and your phone and everything.
Yep.
I got an audition. I got contacted by this production company to host a show that was in development, and hilarious premise where it would be me and two couples that have been married for a long time.
Oh, no.
And they would each pitch to me their best plan for murdering one another.
All right.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, first of all, this show's never going to be made. This will be a fun audition, but there's no way they're going to make that show because the first time somebody uses one of those plans, it's going to go viral. You know what I mean?
Right.
And plus, I could really tell you how to get away with it. And so the chances are pretty good I would get copied, I think, especially if the show was watched by very many people. But in the audition, they asked me, hey, can you tell us your perfect plan for, how would somebody best get away from murder? And I told them I used to be a phone cop. You got to turn off that phone. But here's the thing about turning off your phone. No one ever turns off their phone. So if on that one particular night your phone's off for 16 hours, all of a sudden you're the prime suspect.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
suspicious.
There you
so
go.
you got to drop that phone in the toilet. And you can't just say I dropped it in the toilet because you could have just dropped it in water. You're going to have to drop it in that toilet after you've actually pooped. And there better be some on there for testing to prove you dropped it in that toilet.
So you got to commit.
After you, it's a whole deal.
God.
But that's how you do it. That was my best plan.
Christy, why are you writing all this down?
I'm not. I'm happily married.
That's right. You're happy.
That's right. Todd McComas and How to Get Away with Murder. Tonight, a very special podcast.
Not Dragnet music.
The Investigators. Not copyrighted music from Jack Webb.
Nothing to do with Jack Webb Productions.
I'm interested in how you find the cases to investigate.
That's Jessica. That's Jessica's thing.
We'll find out
Okay.
when we come back. The new podcast is called The Investigators. And your partner in non-crime, if you will, is
Jessica Knoll. She is the glue that keeps the whole thing together. She is the person who gets all the cases because they're all unsolved cases and they're just out there. All these people want to share their family member's case. And Jessica is one of those people they lean on for that. So she just gets this endless flow of cases.
Now, can you give us the short version of one of the early podcasts?
Yeah, there was one. Lori Lee Malloy was a suspicious death case, actually. That's our episode. That's our first episode. And there's a lot of controversy only because the medical examiner got slapped on the wrist, lost his license, and previous to doing her autopsy, unbeknownst to the state that contracted him. He had already been smacked on the hand a couple times for being a bad medical examiner, and he botched her autopsy. So we take a look at it. We got all these police records thanks to the daughter in one of the cooperating police departments. And that was one example where we came up with, on our own, a very viable cause and manner of death for that case.
Todd, did you think that medical examiner was he just operating poorly? He just didn't know what he was doing, or was there something more nefarious?
I think laziness is what I think. There was this cardiomyopathy seems to be the catch-all for just, I don't know how that person died, but their heart stopped.
Yeah.
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 Of course, maybe they had trouble breathing with all the blood dripping down from their skull. Who knows? Yeah.
And I guess this medical examiner, I read a little bit about the story. He would run a monofilament fishing line on the lower lip and make the
cadaver
Well, that
talk.
seems not just.
talk to it, and then they talk back.
That's not just negligent.
Yeah, he made a lot of YouTube videos. And stuff.
How about that?
Now, have the police reopened a case, or
They have exhumed her body.
Really?
And they are going to do a new forensic examination of her remains.
How about
So,
that?
That's
fingers are
amazing.
crossed for that
Wow.
family.
That's serious business.
However, there's always an old saying, Tom, don't presume to exhume. You know that.
Oh, yeah. I have a T-shirt that says
All right.
Sure.
very popular at Halloween. Todd McComas is our guest. I was going to say, a vintage police officer, a veteran
An old
police officer, and a vintage one. And the new podcast, 3 episodes up, and it is called The Investigators. Where does one find this podcast?
Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, any app that supports podcasts, it's on there.
Tom hates that answer. He thinks there's a specific channel.
Yeah.
He wants it tonight at 8 on NBC. That's what he wants.
If you have to pick one, go with Apple Podcasts, I would say.
Okay.
That seems to be
They're everywhere.
Yes.
My God, it's unbelievable.
Yes.
Now, Todd, I know that besides being a very fine police officer, you are also a very fine comedian. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Even at the height of his skills, Tiger Woods had a coach that would help him with his swing.
Yes.
So this is going to be kind of a comedy lesson for you. I don't. But again, please don't take it the wrong way. If you're familiar with the program, our engineer is, of course, Ace Cosby. As you can see, he's sitting right over there.
Legend.
And this is.
I've been looking for. By the way, this is the only reason I came.
Yeah.
I've been listening outside of this studio to the joke of the day.
Okay,
for
yeah, okay. Just a little bit of schooling here, and now here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Who's that sexy man with a deep voice? Ace Cosby, here he is with his joke of the day.
Hey, Chick,
Yes, Ace.
how does a hippie polygamist count his wives?
How does a hippie polygamist count his wives? I don't know, Ace. How?
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
That was Ace Cosby's joke
Oh,
of the day.
Mississippi. Ah.
Oh, see, it's Mississippi.
Oh, that's solid.
That's a thinker. That's
Solid.
Yeah.
Zowie.
You don't hear the word hippie much anymore.
No.
We say it all the time because they're dirty hippies with long hair.
Filthy hippies out there.
And you know what really left the vocabulary world was yuppie.
Yeah.
You never hear that was everywhere for
We
a
had
while.
that. Didn't we land on cool as being the longest used word?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
But, yeah, yuppie's in a Tom Petty song, a good one too. But
Oscar he dropped yuppie on us Friday.
Yeah.
If you remember correctly.
did he drop it on you or me?
He said you were using some fancy yuppie creamer or something.
Oh yeah, the adventurer Laird Hamilton. What is he? He's a surfer and all
Oh,
about.
Laird Hamilton's got a great creamer out
Made
there.
a
ladies
living
and gentlemen.
because he's got a great jawline. Is that,
He's
is that it?
a brilliant surfer, and apparently he has a
Brilliant.
great recipe for coffee. Todd, I hope that when you were a police officer, you didn't have to work with an ungrateful crew like this.
Todd, when you were in the field, did you ever watch a movie or a TV show and you heard a police officer on the show say a line and you went, "That's so cool, I'm going to try that in real life"?
Oh, like one of the crime doesn't take snow days.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've so many times I've waited for such an awesome line, but I would always find myself like, especially toward the end of my career, I was by far the oldest person in my squad because it was designed for young people who have stamina, who can run fast
And can fight.
and do these things. And there was a time I thought, okay, here's my moment. I worked 14 hours tracking a cell phone, and I was running the computer that tracks the phone. 14 hours in the backseat of this SUV, and the hardest track we've ever had. And I get resourceful. I get outside the box, and I'm like, boom, I find the phone. After 14 hours, this impossible phone to find. I'm like, the guy's sitting in that car right there in that alley. So we stop, and we get out, and I'm like, okay, here's the plan. We're just going to sneak up. And because he's sleeping in the car probably. Let's just sneak up and let's sit around, stand there around. Let's let all the air out of his tires. And then let's just spook him and just see what happens. And we get out and we go to rush up to his car. And my leg had fallen asleep after 14 hours. And I fall and face first into the concrete. My gun goes flying down the
my
street,
gosh.
like barrel over a butt. King, 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 king. Skids across the street. Wakes this guy up. He takes off out of the car on foot. I caused the chase. Yeah, just embarrassing.
Caused the chase.
Yeah, that's when you're like, maybe it's time to hang it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So I never really had that cool moment. That one good line.
Let me ask you, of all the cop shows that are out there, of which there are many, what would you say was the most accurate with your experience? The Wire.
The Wire by far. Like whoever helped make that show, because I used to do wiretaps a lot. And I rode with the unit The Wire was based on.
I was going to say,
for 2 weeks.
You told me you went to Baltimore. He was as happy as Christmas morning. He was going to
The
Baltimore.
real Wire guys. Yeah. It was very scary though. I never want to go be a policeman there. But that's by far the most realistic show. Somebody had a lot of knowledge, whoever was consulting on that show. But my favorite's Justified right now with Timothy Oliphant.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
He's like a modern day cowboy.
And there's a new, the new season of it just wrapped up.
I'm a big fan of Bosch. I like the way have you ever watched that?
I have not watched Bosch, but it's in my queue. I don't know why I haven't watched it.
Yeah,
pretty
you'd
good.
enjoy it.
That guy's really cool.
So is Justified very accurate?
It's no. That's why it's cool. Like that's the kind of, but I love to watch shows like that because it's the kind of policeman I always wanted to be, where it just you just blow a bunch of stuff up and then there's no paperwork.
yeah.
It's all the fun stuff.
You'll like
and
Bosch.
So
He thinks outside the box and gets into a lot of trouble.
Now, when you would do plainclothes stuff, do they supply the clothes?
They do not.
Do they give you a budget?
We did get a clothing allowance for a while, and then they took it from us. Detectives got an extra whopping $200 a month.
Oh.
Because we would have to buy extra civilian clothes, I guess, and everybody else gets handed uniforms. But I was undercover for a long time, so I just wore regular clothes for most of my career. And this is you talk about weird things that happen. We got wrapped into a case with the FBI one time where they requested us to be their surveillance team on a dirty cop case. There was a cop who was robbing drug dealers and selling drugs like literally out of his trunk. He was hauling these drugs around and collecting money through the course of his employment. So they needed us to follow him around. So they're like, all right, listen, you guys have to sanitize your vehicles. We register your cars to all these fake businesses and stuff. And so, you know, you're totally invisible. And just you need to sanitize your cars before you leave. Check each other. Do a buddy check. Make sure nothing stands out. Because if we get burnt, this case goes to hell. And there's going to be hell to pay with all you guys. So we were very careful. Now, my buddy drives 3 hours to get to this first surveillance that we do, and he misses the briefing/buddy check.
Oh, boy.
All right.
And he just got a brand new white Dodge Dakota that he was very, very proud of. That the department got him. And he was late because he spent the night with his new girlfriend, who has this very jealous ex-boyfriend that he was always talking about.
Yeah, man.
So he calls us after we're on the surveillance for like 20 minutes. And he says, hey, I missed the briefing. Don't rat me out. You know, just catch me up. Where do I need to plug in at? So we tell him where to go. And we are on the surveillance 5 minutes after he joins us. And our sergeant's like, everybody rally up, Walmart parking lot right now. So we get in there, and he is pissed. And we're like, oh, somebody screwed up. And he gets everybody in front, and he says, listen, I told you guys to check each other's vehicle. We needed to be invisible. We can't blow this. This is a big case. The FBI has asked us, and they never asked us for help. And what did I see when we get out there? And we're like, wow, what's going on? And they're like, come this way. They walk us to Jeff's white Dodge Dakota. And all the way down on the side of his car, or the passenger side, the jealous ex-boyfriend has spray painted, I love to eat, and then a penis with 2 testicles.
Wow.
And everybody's just sitting there stunned. Jeff's like, nobody's saying anything. And I'm standing right next to Jeff, and I'm like, oh, maybe he doesn't understand what it says, so maybe I should read it out loud. Just to make sure. So I read it from left to right. I love to eat penis, testicles. And Jeff hangs his head, and I'm like, what's wrong, buddy? And he goes, I thought that was an exclamation point. So he didn't just think it said, I love to eat. He thought it said, I love to eat. Like,
we got it.
Wow. But that's not what it said.
Did you get the dirty cop?
We did get the
Yeah.
dirty cop. No thanks to Jeff. His car was out of play for the rest of the operation.
Oh, okay. Our guest is Todd McComas, former police officer, now comedian and podcaster. And the podcast, kind of serious business. It's about investigative work involving cold cases, as they say. And there's 3 of them out there already, and it's called The Investigators. And you'll find it wherever on earth you find podcasts. Look, there's one there. I see one. There's one under this piece of paper. You recommend Apple and various
Apple
other
Podcasts, sure.
sources of podcasts.
There's all kinds.
Thank you very much.